Today's episode is sponsored by 5E Leadership and Marketing.
Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, where wisdom comes from everywhere. This is a podcast about generational wisdom shared to help build a bridge for future generations and to build stronger communities through education, technology, and health. Welcome to Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. Hola, hola. We're leaving the dog days of summer, mi gente, and those are the hottest days of the year as we begin our turn towards the fall and winter season. This also begins the closing of our Season 3 podcasting series here at Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. This season, we have been faced with so many political challenges that will require us to support and activate our local leaders and really speak with our community dollars. That can mean boycotts and also supporting those that are getting the vote out for this midterm in this election year. The influence at the top in the United States begins at the ground level within our communities, especially for people of color and the LGBTQ community across this great nation. This November will be a big midterm voting turnout, and we cannot stay idle. Keep your eye on the prize. That's a famous quote and saying from the years of segregation in the 1950s into the civil rights movement, as well as CiCi puede, which the farm workers' march to Sacramento is happening at this very moment. As we move into Season 4 and our third year of podcasting here at Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom, we look forward to bringing you the voices that will be the future champions of our community and build a bigger bridge for us from the block and into the boardroom. Gracias. Today, we're going to hear from CiCi Rojas, the first national board chair and Latina in the history of the 177-year-old nonprofit, the YMCA. We will learn how sports gave CiCi the focus as a youth and how it helped her work within the community to build resources and to help her make connections through businesses. As a mother of 4 children, she understood how Spanish leveraged her power to build alliances that engaged community and create a vision for her to create a sports media company, Tico Productions, LLC, which is a multilingual full-service marketing agency in Kansas City, Missouri. Thank you, CiCi, for breaking the 177-year-old ceiling that is leading into the boardroom for the rest of us into the YMCA. Let's get to it. You talk about your business and your association with the healthcare folks in the community. It seems like everyone rallied around that, and that really built you up to kind of bring a lot of information forward. Can you share with us about how that involvement with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce there in Kansas City, and also how that developed into your pathway into the organization, into your board role at the YMCA?
Yeah. Early on in my career, I found myself, I had a very zigzaggy career. There was not any straight up, or it was an obstacle course. So early on, my career was, after I graduated from college, it was a rocky path to even get that done. I was a single parent with 3 kids, 4 actually, and later on, with single parent with four children. But I started selling cars after a almost 6-year journey to complete a 4-year liberal arts degree, which really didn't amount to much when I was actually out there trying to find a job. And so I went selling cars, and I found myself to be pretty darn good at it. And I was the only female, the only minority back then on the sales floor. And I was able to achieve some pretty good success. And I think the most important part, though, was that I had an owner at the time that saw the value of the Latinos that were coming to me to buy. They're buying cars. And then, and not only were they buying, but they would bring their whole family.
Right.
As we kind of like travel in a pack. They would bring their tias and tios and cousins and what have you with them on the lot to look at vehicles. And because they trusted me, I would, treat them fairly, give them and help them out. And then before you know it, everybody that came with them, but 2 months later, they would come and they would each, they were all buying cars. And my owner said, look, I'm going to give you a budget because I know that this was like way before what we're seeing now, the power of our market, the sleeping giant, the Chisami, right?
Yes.
It's just before that. But he was smart. He goes, I'm going to give you a small budget. I want you to go in the community and I want you to make a bigger impact. So get us involved in events. We'll sponsor some things. We'll get you involved in any XYZ. So sure enough, that led to, sponsoring some events, and I found myself on the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and then some other boards. And that really set me down a different path. And before you know it, I found myself as the CEO of the Hispanic Chamber in Kansas City, which was, it was a very small chamber at the time. Now it's a very big chamber here in our city. But back then it was, just needed some TLC and needed salesperson, to go out and somebody that could sell and bring new partners to the table, corporate partners to the table. So that then literally that my career just took a totally different path, and I started serving on lots of boards. And that was the other lesson I learned. It's many times people of color, especially, we tend to stay in our lane. We serve on the Hispanic serving boards, whatever. We don't venture outside of that. And when I ventured outside of that and I started serving on the general market boards, then my career path and my civic path just opened up.
Wow.
And I found myself serving on many major boards. And so that just led to me down the current path that I'm on now. But, it led me to other career moves for the largest healthcare system here in the city, the public safety net, as a vice president. And that was how I got back engaged with the Y. And it led to a board seat representing the hospital system. And then that led to, serving on the executive board and then raising my hand and taking on some other leadership roles. And then I found myself being elected to the national board of the YMCA. And then eventually now I'm chairman, but I also, along that pathway, I was elected board member for the World Council of the YMCA. So I serve at the local, the national, and then the international level.
Amazing. And you are the first Latina in the 177 years of that organization. So literally you have broken a ceiling within a very old organization. And I think you should really, I know you are, you're very proud of that. And just hearing your story is really amazing. I think what I'm hearing, and for our audience to understand too, is that it's the power of yes and opportunity, making those strides. And like you said, we like to stay in our own lane because it seems comfortable, or maybe it's the way we should do it because everybody else has done it to a little bit. But no, when you step outside the comfort zone, which you've done, but also you were a single mom, you had to do what you needed to do. And this opened up many opportunities for you.
Right. Which you said, I usually, when I talk to young people, and, you say yes more than no. That's the secret sauce. You say yes more than no. And you'd be surprised at how willing people are to give you an opportunity to take on a leadership role if they know that your heart and mind is open to taking on some responsibility outside of your 8 to 5, outside of your day job. And they recognize that, and they equally want, it's a two-way street. Yes, we want people to take notice of us. We want people to reach out and ask, but we have an equal responsibility to raise our hand and say, I'm here, I'm willing. And I use sports analogies, just put me in, coach, give me the ball, I'll score. And I think that there's so many young up-and-comers, not even young up-and-comers. I meet people now that impress me that maybe they've taken an early retirement, they're finding themselves at loose ends, they want an encore. And some of that, a good way to have a great encore is to get involved in the community in a way that you've never gotten involved before.
Exactly.
And make a big difference.
Yeah. Again, there's opportunity of just saying yes. But I want to talk about mentorship. And, you've been in sports and the coaching aspect. There's mentorship and coaching. A lot of people in business say, I need a mentor to get into that leadership role. What would you say to folks like that?
Yes, there's a third rung. It's called sponsorship.
Oh, awesome.
So the mentoring and coaching, I think, are sort of the same. I think mentoring, it's when you go outside a little bit of who you are, what you do, and you find someone that maybe has had a similar path, and it's very functional. It's tactical. They are giving you some practical advice on how you can get from A to Z or navigate from A to B, whatever that looks like. And it looks the same whether you're in a day job and you're trying to get to that next level in your day job, that promotion or what have you. And it looks the same if you're trying to navigate even externally, with civic work. Looks similar. Coaching is a little different in that it's someone who is literally, it's beyond functional. They're giving you some additional expertise. They're giving you that informal, both the formal and informal navigation points. Sponsorship, it's the top rung of that kind of a relationship. Now, mentors aren't necessarily sponsors. Sponsors are the people that are going to advocate for you in a room that you're not in. They talk about you, and they amplify you and what you can do when you're not around. And they open doors for you. They put their credibility on the line for you. That's a sponsor. And it's important to find those sponsors. And what I've learned along the way is, even with mentors, they don't always look like you. They probably don't look like you majority of the time. But the important part is to know how to recognize them when they're in front of you, or you admire someone, you ask them, how you can engage with them. So I just think that you have to look beyond your immediate sphere to find those folks. And, I've had a lot of mentors, sponsors along the way. Some of them look like me, or they were Latinos. Many of them were not, though. Because as we come into these roles, we have a responsibility to be the mentor, the coach, and the sponsor. And as I get on these boards, that's what I always do. I always make sure that I've got people in the pipeline that are going to come behind me, and not just one, but two or three.
Yep. That's an excellent segue, because I do want to talk about pipeline and equity into boards, because now that you are in that leadership role to a global organization, big national organization, as a Latina, and you're in a governance, an executive board position, I would say, right? What is the procedure or standards that boards can do or suggest that they have to keep that pipeline going? Because in a board, people are terming out of their role on the board. So you have to have other people come in and fill those boards that fit a criteria and standards to the organization. How are you doing that, or how is that something you're looking at in this new leadership role for yourself?
So I think for me, it's very simple. It's business case. We're the fastest, Latinos and people of color, the fastest growing segment. I don't care what metric you look at. There's only positive metrics, especially as it relates to Latinos. We're the fastest growing segment of college grads. We're the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs. You pick it. There's no negative metric. Our families are bigger. We consume more groceries on average per week, on average. Whether it's a corporation looking at how they're going to grow their bottom line, or whether it's a nonprofit looking at how they are going to look different from a donor base, from a membership base, from a workforce base. Who's going to work for you, in 10 years. It's simply that. You need to have the people at your board on those decision-making positions, especially boards, if it's a nonprofit, not these large nonprofits. This is a business imperative. So, yes, it's the right thing to do, but beyond that, where do you want to be in 5-10 years? Because if you don't understand this demographic, if you're not managing to how you're going to increase this representation, you're going to be irrelevant in 5 to 10 years. And I think that's that. So I always bring that. I start with that lens typically, and it's just you have to think about it differently. We're no different than Target or some of these other corporations, and you see Spanish ads now in Good Morning America. It's a business imperative. And so that's the way I typically approach it.
Yeah, the board discussion right now is a pretty hot topic, especially with all the social unrest and COVID that has happened. They want to see the bottom line change, and they know they have a corporate responsibility now to communities, especially after the census has just come out, and you do see the large growth of populations in these areas. I mean, it goes into the government organizations of voting as well. So, I mean, it's pretty big, and I'm glad to have you talk about that. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up here is when we talk about you and your entrepreneurial journey and how you're on this board and you're bringing the equity lens in as a board member, how do you see that purveying, or how is that going out into the community for community sports and justice? Because there's a lot of communities that don't really have a lot of programs out there, and the why may be far away, or how do you reach out to them? I mean, I'd like to hear a little bit about that as you move into this role with the organization.
Well, once again, I'm a governance leader. So we've got a paid CEO who's an excellent leader. The Y has one of the most impactful diversity, equity, inclusion, but it's actually for us, it's international diversity, equity, inclusion. So it's such a well-run leadership group, highly sought after because of our work in this space. That being said, from a governance perspective, I know that there are things that we can do from our lane, and one of them is greater diversity on local YMCA boards. That's one starting point. And, I have some ideas about that. We've already been exploring them. How do we partner with other national diverse organizations that have local chapters where you have, like, for example, the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, the Black Chambers of Commerce, Asian, whatever you pick it, LGBTQ. There are natural leaders, business owners, executives on those boards that should be on our list at these local levels of potential leaders. So, I mean, how do we make just some of those kind of lower hanging fruit kind of opportunities? The other is in national sports partnerships. I also serve on the board of USA Volleyball, the National USA Volleyball, and that's just one example of other national partnerships that we could look at that would strengthen, because it's all local. We have to strengthen these local Ys and help affect what they can do and how they can make an impact in their local markets. So I think that those are just a couple of examples of some work that I hope to get done. Our national board is very diverse. We have a good diversity on our board, not just in ethnicity and race, but also in terms of geography, youth, age, industry, and just good leaders. And it's very evident in our national board of directors, and that needs to be emulated at the local levels.
So as we talk about your journey into the board and how you got there through your sponsorship, your entrepreneurial, and saying yes, I think that's the one thing people have to understand is saying yes to an opportunity, and then also finding those folks that will support and sponsor you. Make yourself big in the room, and the advocacy will be there. So I want to talk about, because you have your own business, Tico, if we could talk a little bit about that and how you do your production company in Espanol for the Kansas City Chiefs. So in your broadcasting for the national organization there in Kansas City, do you feel that is bringing a lot of awareness specifically to that organization, that Latinos are a big presence that need to be recognized? As you were talking about earlier, about how big we are in our buying power and our now media power, which is growing. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that and how that, comes into play here.
Right. So we have a multicultural marketing company, and we've been around for about 10 years now. And we produce any number of productions, video, graphic design, animation, all that stuff. So we do it in 2 languages. But we also developed a third-party Spanish language sports broadcasting platform in 2016. And we produce Spanish language broadcasts. Looks just like the general market broadcast on Spanish, now for NFL teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Baltimore Ravens. We also work with several college teams, including the Cornhuskers, KU, Jayhawks, And we've done some MLB. We've worked with the Royals, Kansas City Royals. We've worked hockey. We've worked with the San Jose Sharks. So we have a good, tried and true sports vertical that we've been perfecting over these years. But absolutely, yes. So the NFL, for example, the Latino market is something that they know that they have to understand, and they're making lots of great effort. You know, there's marketing rights now in Mexico for some of the teams, and beyond. Not just that sport, but any sport. The metrics for Latinos in sports are incredible, the growth opportunity. It's not just soccer for us anymore. Right. It's football, it's boxing, it's racing. If you looked at the IRL was in Miami like a month ago, and every major Latinos, a lot of them famous actors and pop stars, whatever they were there. We love sports. And it's an economic thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think they're just getting privy to that, and I think that they know the power of that in the media, because it all relates back to advertising. And I don't know, maybe when J-Lo and Shakira were, in the Super Bowl, maybe that's when the eyes opened and said, oh, hey, maybe this is where we need to expand a little bit more.
And I think it's also relevant is, like, for example, in the case of football, it's not just a viewership thing, but it's who's going to be playing the game.
Yeah.
Our kids are the fastest growing, Latino kids are the fastest growing segment of kids entering grade school. Well, they're the future football players, they're the future basketball players. I mean, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, it's a growing segment for sure. And, just because we're on that topic of media and the Latino market, technology comes into that. And so what I like to talk about is the sports and technology, because a lot of college grads have communications degrees, liberal arts degrees, degrees that they don't think can be transferable to, I want to say, technology space in general. But now all those skills are transferable, in my opinion. I'd like to get your take on that, especially for this growing Latino market.
Absolutely. So, our company, we're multimedia, we're, production, broadcasting, but it's all rooted in technology. Mm-hmm. It's all rooted in technology. And we have a lot of interns that come to us with mass communications, what have you. Mm-hmm. But we talk to even the young kids that maybe had thought that they might want a career in sports on the playing field. And we tell them, it may not be on the playing field, but there are many other opportunities in sports that have a technology base that, that you could be an excellent contributor. Anything from, because we have the app that we have to program, everything that we do, once again, is how we deliver the sport. We might have broadcasters that are incredibly talented, but they have to understand how to use the technology from every nuance, whether it's projecting themselves and amplifying themselves on social media, whether it's learning the specific details of them on the recording and the broadcast of the actual broadcasting of the stream, all the back end work that has to happen to be able to distribute the stream and interact with all these different partners to be able to get the feed where it needs to go. It's all rooted in technology.
Oh yeah. So we've said this in previous podcasts that if you feel that you don't have the technical aptitude for this, you're absolutely wrong. You can take one course, or you can get certified for free through Google, to pick up a skill and take that degree and transfer the skills with that little tech certification, because you cannot go through any job now without learning any kind of basic technology function. So sports is a big arena. It's growing. We're all on the mobile apps now, watching it for days. So I think it's a great opportunity for folks. And I think with your business over the last 10 years, you've probably seen it grow exponentially. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for example, now, they're streaming, the NFL, just take that sport, they're streaming on Amazon now on Thursday nights. That wasn't the thing 5 years ago even. And the way they're constantly having to redefine to how they distribute the internet, the internet broadcasting rights. And every year it looks, we might have, even though we have something that's, in our contract for several years, every year it seems like that gets pulled out, and we have to constantly relook at that and revisit it with the teams, because technology is changing so quick. Take betting.
All these states are passing betting laws, which has huge implication for sports as an economic driver. Well, we got to be ready because that's a big economic driver, once again, of sports. So, how is that going to play in to whether it's an advertiser, it's media delivery, podcast, what we're doing here, there's just so many implications. And because it's changing so quickly, you have to just at least maintain a basic knowledge level of technology. And most young people are, but if you have to retool for a career, I would start with that.
Yep, absolutely. And as we were saying before, the power of yes, just say yes to learning a new skill in that arena. And if you love the sport, if you love tech, that's a marriage made instantaneously. And that brings us to circle back to the Y and their technology outreach through the interwebs and bringing it all back to diversity, the pipeline build in that with an equity lens. Where do you see that with the YMCA today and involving more technology, bringing more leadership into the organization?
Yeah, so the Y is no different than any other industries. We retooled too during the pandemic. We had to. Many Ys found themselves becoming and doing many more things in the community because people couldn't work out at the gyms. So we became food dispensaries. We became, childcare for essential child workers. We also, had to take programming online and make sure that we had resources that are available for people both. In many cases, our technology centers that we had, small ones, became much larger during the pandemic, so people could have opportunities to access needed resources with lots of other essential places, amenities being closed. And that has carried over into, post-pandemic and recovery and continuing to use technology as a way to educate, inform, train. So now, many of the things that we would gather for in person, we've been able to, use online platforms to be able to at least deliver some. Yeah, it's not necessarily going to replace the in-person interaction, but there can be some great training that can happen, virtually. We're no different than many other organizations that have had to pivot, and it did open up more opportunities for us to engage, especially with the lens toward our multicultural the DEI work. And I just met with the cohort of leaders of color, and it's a very competitive process that young leaders in the Y go through, not even young leaders, just leaders in the Y that have potential to get into the higher leadership pipeline. And it was in person, but it was a great, very enthusiastic future leadership for the Y. But some of that program is now delivered virtually, even though we were in person for some of that. But some of it is delivered virtually. So it's just given us many more opportunities.
Right. And so in a previous podcast, I talked to a very young gentleman who was talking about the power of technology and how they are really the owners of it and how they use it and the way it can be transformed. And I think if we have and we see the capabilities in these younger folks to bring on to a leadership role, or even if they have, a sponsorship into learning the board, that just changes everything, in my opinion. It's quite amazing. But again, we're building that bridge. CiCi, I believe you and I and through the youth organization, through the YMCA, building the bridge of knowledge, right? That you're extending out for services, organizational, community outreach, and building leaders through the YMCA, right?
Yes.
So I just want to end on that a little bit. And I wanted to just ask you, is there anything else that we should understand about the YMCA or your leadership role? I know that you're the first Latina that, again, in 177 years of that organization, which is, it's impressive, and you're breaking the ceiling. What would you like to leave us with on that note? Because I'm very excited for you.
I know. I think that, for me, it's been a journey of love. I love the Y. I've been involved with it for many years, beginning when I was a young girl and learned how to play volleyball there. I think what I've said in the past is that many people, most people I talk to all have a Y story. Whether it's, they learn to swim there, their kids learn to swim at the Y. They've, played a sport. They've been there for Boy Scout or Girl Scout meetings. The Y's been a convener, and it will continue to be a community convener going forward, in addition to offering all the other things that we do. But I feel just really good about the Y, where we're at now, where we're going. I hope to raise awareness for the fact that we do have a very good, diverse national board. We want to be that leader in DEI, and we want to be held as a leader, as an example of an organization that's gotten it right and can continue to improve in this area. And I want to make sure that we diversify our local boards and they look more like the communities that we serve. So I think that those are some things that, I have some goals, obviously, I'd like to accomplish, but I think at a high level, those are the things that tend to be pretty important.
That's wonderful. I love that. It's okay to fail. And I love the story of you telling me that you were in car sales at the beginning for 6 years as a single mother, and that's where it all started. That was amazing.
Yes. I did, and that handed me so many lessons. One, only female. One, only person of color on the team. But I learned so much from that experience, just because that experience teaches you. You have to try to create a relationship with someone in just the span of a few minutes. And if you think about your life, when you go and try to buy, vehicle, and you walk on the car dealership, a showroom floor, and you're greeted by someone, and you're going to form an opinion about them right away, early on. And so you only have a few minutes to manufacture a relationship. And so, I learned early on, to literally have an open mind and see everybody as, that they have a story, they have a personal story, and how you get to a point where you can, get to know someone and, pretty quickly and build a relationship. But, I also learned, how to speak to a farmer that wanted to buy a truck, a dually or a extended cab, to somebody that wanted to buy, a Lincoln. He was a CEO, and literally everybody in between. And that taught me a lot. And I tried, and I keep that perspective too today. In my business and everybody I talk to and interact with, to my civic work, to my board leadership work, and everybody has a story. And I think they all should be valued.
Absolutely. Multifaceted is maybe a word that, we try to be multifaceted so we can communicate and open the doors for ourselves. So this was a wonderful conversation, CiCi. I love your story and your new role at the board of the YMCA, the Global National Board, the recognition you have, and for also discussing with us the opportunities in media, sports media for Latinos, and the huge opportunity there. So, that's just wonderful. Is there anything else, or how can we find you? Where can we keep in touch with you? That would be amazing.
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me at my company. It's Tico Productions and Tico Sports. We're located in Kansas City. Our website is www.ticoproductions.com. You can catch us on any of our Spanish language broadcasts. It's pretty easy to Google. Just, Chiefs in Espanol, Ravens in Espanol, Eagles, or the Jaguars. And you can hear our broadcast. We hope to have another announcement or two for another couple teams that we're actively in talks with right now. So.
And Facebook, and what about your social handle?
Yeah, so my social handle, I have a couple of them. One is CiCi and KC is my Instagram handle. Facebook, it's just CiCi Rojas. You can follow me there. And of course, the Y. I do have a YMCA board chair email address that is on the website. So if you have any questions about the Y, I'd be happy to try to answer or direct you to the best person that can help you. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So it's CiCi Rojas on LinkedIn.
Thank you, CiCi, for joining us today on Latinas from the Block to the Boardroom. She broke the ceiling of 177 years being the first Latina in a nonprofit organization as the national board chair. That's amazing. If you'd like to learn more about CiCi and her Tico Productions and Tico Sports broadcasting and multilingual agency. You can find her on LinkedIn at CiCi, that's CiCi Rojas, Rojas, in LinkedIn, and also at YMCA.org, and look for their National Board Chair webpage. As we close out this season 3, we want to thank you so much for sharing our podcast, supporting our newsletter, and reaching out to us for partnerships and advertising. This podcast really does take the support of the community and your active support to share this podcast, to keep this platform going so that we can bring you the voices and champions of tomorrow. Here we come, season 4. And again, we're going to bring you the champions and voices of tomorrow that will really inspire us, and also to create the businesses that we want to bring to community. So stay tuned for season 4. This podcast was produced by Teresa E. Gonzalez of Latina's B2B.marketing, and audio engineered and sound designed by Robert Lopez. Gracias, mi gente.